My name's Fatemeh Namdar, and I'm from Albuquerque, New Mexico. And my topic is addiction, and it takes a village, and that it impacts everybody. And the goal of my talk is to educate my Muslim brothers and sisters about addiction and hopefully to break the stigmatization associated with it. The outcome is that I hope to decrease the stigmatization associated with it. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. My name is Fatemeh Namdar, and tonight I will be talking to you about addiction and that it takes a village and that it impacts everybody. All right, so a big portion of my presentation was a video from Vice, so I would highly, highly, highly recommend to you all after this talk to go ahead and watch that. It's on the addiction crisis in Dearborn. You can just Google that and it will come up for you. So I know a lot of you here immigrated from different countries, and you came here with the hopes and the expectations to better yourselves or for your children. And so I know that when you came here, you didn't expect a lot of the difficulties that we would be facing or we would be presented with. I currently know more young people that have died from addiction and abuse than older people that have died. And this is not the way it should be. Addiction and drug abuse is a vice in the Muslim community, and it should not be this way. So tonight I wanted to talk to you all about addiction and hopefully educate you on this topic. So how many of you drink coffee in the morning, or you guys have to have your sweets or tea in the morning? Okay, a lot of you. So those are types of behaviors that can be addictive. Oh, you do? Great. Go ahead and play it.
Opioid epidemic is pretty bad in the city of Dearborn. Also all over the state of Michigan.
Opioid-related deaths here in Michigan are soaring.
The counties with the highest reported number of deaths are Wayne County.
I was shocked to realize that the opioid epidemic had reached the Muslim community. This is a new crisis.
In the Muslim community, people were trying to treat addiction at home.
My parents were denying that I had a drug problem. It was obvious that I was doing something wrong.
Unfortunately, within our community, the failure of the child is automatically taken as failure of the family.
Drug addiction has destroyed my family. Here, every parent's in denial, like the amount of ODs that's been going on since 2016.
We just got a spike in calls for narcotic overdoses, mainly in the Muslim community. We might have a family tell us it might be a diabetic issue, when 100% it's a drug overdose.
These are the last two I will ever allow to put in my body ever again.
The biggest anger with the issue was people pretending it wasn't an issue at all.
There are many Muslims that never seek help and then ultimately end up dying because of the shame and guilt.
So that was the video that I was talking to you all about. And back to my point that I was referring to about the coffee and the sweets. Those are types of behaviors that are all addictive. And so are some of these other ones here, which this is not working. You can see here there is shopping. A lot of people, they love to shop, or they are loving to go to work. They just have that insistent need to go to work, or maybe it's something like watching a lot of TV shows, playing on the phone, or lots of video games. These are all behaviors that are addictive that we typically don't think of as addiction. So how many of you right now have your phones out or maybe are checking your phone? A lot of us constantly have the need to check our emails or our social media. I just wanted to say that if we were addicted to our deen and our religion as much as we are to our phones and social media, we probably all would be going to heaven. So this is an image showing brain scans and the dopamine receptors in the human brain. You can see here the areas on the left side here that have more red, that shows that there's more dopamine. So what is dopamine? Dopamine is a chemical that is released in our brain for pleasurable experiences, like when you have that coffee or when you have chocolate in the morning. But in the addicted brain, that is actually decreased. And these people, their brain is actually altered. So they're not getting that same response that we would be normally getting. They need to be turning to those drugs or some other substance to be getting that feeling of euphoria and goodness. So I'm sure a lot of you, like I said, are well aware of the opioid epidemic currently going on. There's more than 650,000 opioid prescriptions that are dispensed on a daily basis from pharmacies in the United States. Out of that, 3,900 people are using these opioids without any medical purpose. Out of that, there's about 80 people that are dying from an opioid-related overdose daily. So we typically don't think of, those behaviors that I told you earlier, the shopping, the phones as type of addictions. Neither do we usually think of these prescriptions that we're getting from the doctors. But that is the reason that we are in the situation that we are in currently right now with this opioid epidemic. So it makes it okay, right? Because it's coming from a doctor, so it must be legitimate, it must be all right. Well, that's not the case. That's the same thing that is coming from the cartel. It's just packaged differently. And I wanted to show you here that people who start opioids, they are 40 times higher to later on start using heroin. You can see here, this is over the past 10 years, the increase in millions of prescription opioid use. We start here at 76 million and go all the way up to 210 million just in the past 10 years. So back to us. What does this have to do with us as Muslims? Data is extremely limited because of the stigmatization that is associated with this and the cultural shame that we have. And it's not just with us. We have this in the Western culture as well. There are very few studies, and a lot of times participants are likely to conceal any of these issues because of the stigmatization associated with it. Just in Dearborn alone, the community has seen a 200% increase in opioid-related deaths. So a lot of us might just say, well, why can't they just stop this? Well, this has it becomes a physical dependence. Their brain actually depends on it. And and when that happens, they just can't stop. So Prophet Mohammad, peace be upon him, said, whoever helps his brother in his time of need, Allah will be there in his time of need. So just to switch gears for a moment, why is this important? And so why is it so important for us and for our children? Because this is a study done by the University of Michigan, and it shows here on that third graph bar from the end that 12th grade students, only about 32% of them are getting their prescriptions They're opioids from prescriptions. But you can see all the way on the far right, about 60% of them are getting them from their friends and family members. So in our community, I know it's very common, my back hurts or my leg hurts, and a friend or family member, they might say, oh, here, you might want to try this, and maybe this will help your pain go away. Well, this is a big problem because this is our brain, and we're a child, a 5-year-old child is on the far left end, and a 20-year-old brain on the far right end. You can see that the lighter colors are an undeveloped brain, and on the far right is the more developed brain with the darker colors. The front part of the brain is the last part to develop, which is the part that is important in decision making. And this is the part that is mostly affected if children are getting drugs at younger ages. So this later on in life affects their ability for decision making and for coping skills. The age that is mostly impacted is 10 to 12 years old. So you might say, how is my 10 or 12-year-old going to get a prescription? Well, maybe they broke their leg, or maybe there was a car accident, and that kid, the doctor's writing them a prescription. So they are 18 times higher later on in life to use heroin. So stigma says these people, this is a life choice. This isn't a life choice, and that's what I'm here to tell you guys tonight. Their brains are becoming physically and chemically changed. A typical person might just have a normal life stressor, an argument with your husband and wife, go on with your life the next day. But for these people, something just as small as that can cause them to go back to their old habits. For example, I'm sure many of you guys have tried dieting, being healthier, having a healthier lifestyle. So imagine you're doing great for about 3 months, and then all of a sudden you have that fight with your husband or your wife, and it completely derails you. You just go have that bag of chips, or you go have, that piece of cake. That's kind of like the similar type of a situation for these people. So the stigma associated with this, I just want to say that as a goal, all of us try to wake up every morning and be better Muslims. These people do this as well too. But a lot of times this stigma follows them wherever they go and no matter what they do to change it. The impact of stigma, it isolates them. The further the isolation, the further the depression, and the further this cycle just keeps going round and round. So what does this have to do with me? Prophet Mohammad, peace be upon him, said, every act of kindness is charity. I'm just asking you all to open your minds and to open your hearts and to try to accept them and to become educated about this topic. And hopefully with more scholars becoming educated, we can have programs at all of the different mosques around the country, not just the populations that have a lot of Muslims, the smaller towns as well, for these people to turn to their faith. I just want you to remember that just because somebody's smiling, it doesn't mean that they're not hurting on the inside. And according to Imam Ali alayhi salam, one who admits his wrongdoings deserves forgiveness. Thank you.